So we're basically going to take you round, and from Paul's excellent training session this morning, we're going to ask you to score the park, how you think, and what you think of the heritage features, and sort of what comments you might give.
Okay, so we're going to walk down this way first, and then we'll walk back around up to the top and walk, and we'll stop at certain places, and then we'll discuss which of the criteria really could be scored in that particular area, and ask you which ones you think. What here do you think could be scored on some of those criteria? Is there anything particular here that stands out that could be linked into the heritage or heritage interpretation of this space?
So we could be looking historic features given prominence.
We've got the miner's helmets interpreted.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
No.
The play equipment looks kind of industrial.
Yeah. If you went to number 10, the last criteria of new and replaceable feature, enhanced, conserve the historic character, well, actually, putting this new feature in, like concrete miners' helmets, it adds something to the space, doesn't it? And allows for that sort of interpretation, doesn't it? Even though it's a new addition.
I like the way that they've aged them as well, with the lichens.
And obviously something like that as well when you look at interpretation of the site as well. So if we go to criteria, let's have a look. Criteria number 6 as well. Again, that could be used around information interpretation to sort of tell the story of the site as well, just through sort of those new features. So the sort of, like in most of the judging, those of you who've sort of done grief like judging before, often one of the features can be scored in a number of criteria, can't it?
Historic features given prominence.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're quite prominent, aren't they?
Should we let them into the secret?
Yeah.
They weren't originally there.
Okay.
So all these are actually, we've been told, are actually new features. So when this area of the mine was closed, everything was removed, and obviously what they've done is they brought back in features from other collieries and used them to tell the story of the space, which is a great idea, really. So they're exactly what would have been here, but they're not the originals from the space. Yeah.
For this site, are you looking at the whole site, not just the country park element?
So for Green Flag Award, we're looking at the whole site. For Green Heritage Accreditation, we are specifically looking at the prominence of the heritage features and the sort of conservation of the heritage features. So the heritage element of your site might be quite a small part of it, or it could be a series of things throughout the site. Okay, so having a look, which sort of criteria do we think we'd be looking at here? Anybody want to shout out what they think?
Maybe number 5, number 6.
Number 5 and number 6.
And number 2.
And number 2, historic features given prominence. Yeah, I haven't got numbers. Historic integrated into the life of the site, yes. And information.
What about historic features intact and in use?
It's intact.
To me, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because on first, I suppose this is where interpretation and signage is really useful, because on first impressions it could be that it's a derelict building and it's not actually used, but actually then when you read the panel, it's been moved from another area and reconstructed here, and its originality has been kept, hasn't it, from where it's been moved to. So, and I assume it's probably open at certain times for people to access. When you look here, obviously it is boarded up at the moment. So that's where it would be, where we'll be looking at the conservation plan for this building. Because obviously I thought with reading the signage, actually on first impressions it was open.
Perhaps it's a work in progress.
But it looks as if, so that's where you'd be looking at what the plans are for this building. Clearly it's been moved here at some time in the past, and maybe it's come into disrepair again, and again you want to see in the conservation plan what the plans are to either conserve this building, bring it back into use. I don't know, obviously that's where the plan becomes important.
So I think this is where the original mine shaft
Oh,
was.
So apparently this is the original wheel from the mine, which I understand is the only surviving piece of the original mine. Has anybody got a view on what could improve this area?
Sign.
So some sort of signage
Sign.
to explain the fact that it is part of the original mine workings that were here in the mine buildings. Would be useful, wouldn't it, to have some sort of interpretation here?
Mm-hmm.
I understand a lot of this area over here were the spoiled areas from the mine.
So I wonder if that would be worth just having a little bit of something here, be it a QR code or something where you can learn some information or see what it used to look, if they've got images of what it used to look like, just to add a little bit of heritage.
Mountain bikers, but you think there'd be something in the mountain bike kit that could trigger, sort of say, did you know you're what you're
Because I
cycling
think this
over
area
now?
over here was they took the opportunity to create a mountain bike trail on there because obviously it was a spoil tip, so it gave them the opportunity to do whatever they wanted to do with it. Yeah, it's quite a lot. We only got there's quite a lot more, isn't there, up in the nature reserve at the top as well.
So the nature reserve could form part of the historic element of the site.
Yeah.
It's sort of if it's always been there or if there's sort of any special projects there to try and recreate habitats and look at the biodiversity.
And here's the clear sort of heritage here, isn't it, with all the mine workings, but then there's also the interpretation of the spoil heaps, isn't it, here, of which were connected, obviously connected with the mine and the new use.
I think we could probably say it's a park of two halves, isn't it? Somewhere the heritage is really well interpreted, and some perhaps where there's maybe the opportunity to put a little bit more interpretation in there.
We've been in. Is that a historic feature of the
Yeah,
site?
they had a couple of boards about that, hasn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the oldest travelling
Yeah,
theatre
I was
in the
just reading
country.
that on-
Right,
So even though,
okay.
even though it's a modern building, this is what we were saying before, is sometimes when we talk about history and parks, people only think it has to be a Victorian park with bandstands, and actually, there's history here from Britain's old surviving travelling theatre, which is being interpreted on this site, which is, of great significance. Even though we have lots of parks that have heritage awards that have bandstands, Victorian design, there's lots of other heritage that can be interpreted, I think, as the...
People who are into theatre might come just for that reason.
Yeah.
Explore more.
And as I tell Paul, everybody on our team is now of historic interest.